Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. As I was saying, yeah, we're on the edge of the holiday season, so hopefully folks can wind down their webinar and Zoom time. But hopefully this will be a good way to round out the year. We'll have some fun. We'll give some updates. Got plenty of new faces. Going to have a fun discussion around skills as currency, which I'm excited about. And yeah, we'll try to plow through, and we might even wrap up a bit early. So thanks all for those I don't know. I'm Taylor Kendall with Learning Economy Foundation. We have a number of folks on from Learning Economy as well. We'll probably keep intros light just to conserve time. But Duncan and Colin, if you want to just actually, Colin will give a quick highlight on some work he's doing, so we'll wait on yours. But Duncan, if you want to say hi real quick.
Hi, folks. For those of you that don't know, Duncan Cox with Learning Economy Foundation. I support a lot of the work with C-Lab and a lot of Learning Economy's projects, including like the T3 network, LER Hub, and the Internet of Education. So yeah, I'm sure many of you have received emails from me.
If we try to keep communication pretty light, but if you get too many emails, it's Duncan's fault in a good way. Cool. I'm gonna jump right in, give a quick update on sort of C-Lab and where we've been through 2020. I'll try to keep that pretty short and sweet. And then got a few other folks. I see Michael's on from CDHE. Give any sort of state agency folks a quick chance to give a few updates. And then we'll turn it over and try to leave at least half the time for the sort of panel discussion, which will then certainly be sort of a broader open discussion for the full crew. So I'm going to share real quick. I've got that's our agenda, not that one. And I'll share this out. We'll share it out after, and Duncan, feel free to layer links as we go here. This should be pretty quick. I'm at the end. So again, quick intros. We'll get to a couple other intros as we go through. So I'm going to keep moving and just look at some of the events and initiatives we've sort of taken on this past year, some of the other resources that we've supported, and then a range of other projects that we've been connected into. C-Lab started a year ago now, which actually feels like many years ago. It's crazy that it was only in January that we really kicked a lot of this off. And it's a collaborative effort between Learning Economy Foundation and the Colorado Department of Higher Education, as well as increasingly a few other state agencies, the Office of Information Technology and the Governor's Office, and a number of others that are listed here. This was sort of representation as far as that sort of kickoff went. We had a big group that convened in person when that was a real thing for everybody at the History Museum in Denver. Had a number of panels and sort of, just discussed and worked through what this sort of effort might look like and what we could do. And I think, came away with a lot of good strategies for the year came out of that kickoff. And there's a little link there, just bit.ly/C-Lab kickoff. If anyone wants to kind of get a deeper dive on the synthesis from that kickoff, you can grab that link there. But yeah, so I would say, probably a quarter or half of these groups that were part of that initial sort of convening and stakeholder list are still actively involved in one way or another. So certainly part of the work is just aligning and finding means to support all these great organizations, private, public, state agencies. We've certainly got a good mix of folks that are part of this effort. So one of the initiatives that came out of a lot of this work, there was about halfway through the year, we sort of saw a need and an interest in cybersecurity, and there was a clear gap between the sort of talent being provided and the job opportunities that were available in Colorado. So kicked off a sort of ad hoc group under the auspices of CO3, and have since been, we just in fact yesterday had our 6th meeting, and it's really about aligning and finding room for certain pilots, sharing updates. But that's going to there's a charter there of sort of what we're looking to accomplish, again, that you can grab. But that group's ongoing, and I think will continue into next year as well. So for those with interest in the world of cybersecurity, know that there's sort of a venue through CLab to get tied into to that. I think many are aware, the U.S. Department of Education, along with the American Council on Education, ACE, put out a request for folks to apply for some funding looking at blockchain in education. The Department of Higher Ed and Learning Economy, we submitted a proposal around this broad idea of a Colorado Distributed Ecosystem Exchange, Codex. So just wanted to update folks that, and in fact, we've got others on that were both a part of that, as well as other proposals. So early next year, we'll be excited to hear back and let folks know sort of where some of that money ended up and what some of the projects are that will funnel out of that initiative. But exciting to see very real support from the federal level being funneled into some of these initiatives. So that's sort of the Colorado angle on this. And with that in mind, I wanted to give, this is, I think, about 2.5 minutes or so, but this is a quick video that Spencer put together, and he said it was fine to share. So I wanted to let this run real quick, give you an idea of this proposal from Colorado.
Greetings from Colorado. I'm happy to be with you today, and I'd like to start with some questions. How can we better serve those in the greatest need? How can we leverage technology to accelerate individuals and societies toward collective success? And how can we ensure that all lifelong learning counts? These are just some of the questions we're exploring as we harness innovation to meet the ambitious vision necessary to ensure a thriving workforce for the present and the future. The Colorado Distributed Ecosystem Exchange, or Codex, is an exciting new state framework and LER pilot network for connecting learners to education and work. Seeded by the Colorado Council for Advancement of Blockchain Technology, created by the governor in 2018, this collaborative work and public-private partnership network is helping to chart a blueprint for exploration of blockchains and emerging technology in state government and education. With Colorado exploring new models for quantifying value, new trusted digital instruments for documenting lifelong learning journeys, and new protocols for mapping skills and competencies across perceived and actual barriers, Codex folds into the existing infrastructure with the goals of serving learners and optimizing systems, all while aligning with the outcomes identified by the Colorado Commission on Higher Education's master plan, which include erasing equity gaps, increasing credential attainment, maximizing affordability, and investing in innovation. Existing projects with partners and tools such as Credential Engine, BrightHive, W3C, will enable an environment for invitational participation from tech service providers in the future. Building from the enthusiasm of both the Blockchain Council and CDHE's exploration in this field, the project aims to continue to build on existing projects and priorities while opening the door to further collaborative efforts with service providers and entities well into 2020 and 2021, aiming for meaningful and demonstrated impact in 2022. Through this effort, and in alignment with a range of existing state initiatives, Colorado is now positioned to pioneer next-generation LER infrastructure in pursuit of the governor's priority to ensure all Coloradans have access to opportunities, quality, lifelong education connected to the future of work. This collaborative and growing network of partners empowers an ecosystem-first approach and ensures that the proposed pilots will be sustainable and benefit all Colorado learners for years to come. This will be executed by prioritizing 3 pilot innovations. 1, supporting and enhancing the state digital ID to empower learners. 2, maintaining and expanding the state data trust to unlock lifelong learning. And 3, promoting digital credentials and pathways to improve economic mobility. Through this decentralized but unified vision across a growing network, Colorado aims to become a blueprint for inspiration and collaboration with others as we move into the future of rethinking, innovating state policy, and advancing educational and economic opportunities for all.
Cool. I'm hoping that came through okay. Assuming it did. Awesome. I was just watching faces, making sure the audio was coming through. So anyway, quick taste of just that proposal. Again, we'll update folks early next year on sort of where that ends up. We certainly see that as a good sort of foundation, regardless of somehow the blockchain challenge sort of funding moves. Next piece wanted to highlight, we also recently both designed and then also distributed this resource to the community, the C-Lab Community Hub. Duncan, feel free to share links. I think a number of folks on here are part of that, but it's a space where we can continue this virtually and asynchronously, these sort of conversations, and share resources, connect folks. So again, that was Duncan, feel free, or others, if you want to jump in and say anything. I've said Duncan is our sort of go-to ninja when it comes to all things community hub. This Colorado is one of a number that we've supported. Duncan, anything else you want to mention as far as the hub goes?
Yeah. Just briefly, I sent a link to the sign up here. This will allow you to sign up for the C-Lab Community Hub, which is part of the greater Internet of Education Hub. And that includes, I think we've got over 100 folks in there from, different countries and different labs, including the Asia Pacific Lab, and just various initiatives that Learning Economy supports. So by joining this, you'll be able to join the greater community of folks that we support and engage with.
Cool. Again, another initiative. We obviously have been doing these pulses. We've done 8 this year, have hosted a number of experts, of which we'll do again today. And the plan is to continue these into next year. So know that this will, hopefully we can keep this cadence. And again, every third Wednesday at noon Mountain Time, we'll keep evolving and iterating on these calls, and hopefully make them as useful as possible. And then a broad range of other projects that I just wanted to highlight. Again, the state ID, which we mentioned, My Colorado Journey. In fact, Michael, since maybe now is a better time if you want to highlight anything about MCJ and some of that, or we can wait and sort of do it after this. But happy to let you jump in and mention some of your work with MCJ if you'd like.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, Taylor. Thanks to you all. Michael Vonte, Senior Director of Research and Data Governance at Department of Higher Ed here in Colorado. As Taylor said, and as Spencer said, being able to lean into a lot of the great energy that we've built up over this past year. So Taylor mentioned our My Colorado Journey platform, and I'm going to put a link, I think I have a link, to MCJ in the chat there, really being able to leverage the state data trust that we've developed with the help of Bright Hive and others in bringing together different state data sets and being able to help inform the different conversations around education, training, and workforce planning, and being able to equip an individual of any age with the most robust information as we can on that front. And so doing all of that via My Colorado Journey is kind of the user experience, and on the back end, the data trust, which powers all of that. So leaning into that work of the data trust and being able to continue to contribute data to that data trust for a variety of use cases. Spencer mentioned in his video a little bit of some work with credential engines. I'm sure some of you know their work as well. And so what we've been doing and working on is publishing all of Colorado's eligible training provider list, or ETPL, data to the Credential Engine Registry. We work very closely with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment on the management of that list in Colorado, and we're trying to move in a direction where that list for Colorado becomes our canonical source of education and training providers in the state. And so being able to kind of build out that collection of data from all of the different providers and programs that are on the ETPL that are offered in Colorado and receiving the WIOA funding, but even broader than that, and being able to share that on My Colorado Journey with Credential Engine, with other use cases as well. So that's something that is a little bit hot off the presses. This week is when we published all of those things to the Credential Engine registry. We'll continue to do that, make all of that better. Also being able to work with National Skills Coalition and some of their quality non-degree credential work, and being able to kind of weave that into some of these ETPL canonical source conversations as well. So just a very broad overview of some of the MCJ and data trust work. And as Spencer said in his video, being able to kind of knit these things together with other initiatives when it comes to LERs, when it comes to the state's digital wallet, and how best we can kind of use all of these avenues together.
Awesome, thank you. Michael's done a few of these, so you can cover a lot of ground quickly. Thanks. Yeah, so obviously excited to continue pushing all of this and align it, and MCJ's a huge piece of the state infrastructure. So a few other initiatives. The one other I'll highlight that we're excited about is ETH Denver, a global Web3 event for those that are in sort of the broader blockchain and crypto world. ETH Denver 21 is going to be really exciting. We just saw a preview of the virtual event space we'll use. There's a whole Colorado track called the Colorado Jam. CLab and CDHE will have a virtual booth as a part of that. But jump over and check out just ethdenver.com. And again, it's a free open event. Should be a pretty interesting, and I venture to say, unlike any virtual event anyone will have been a part of to this point. So excited about supporting that next year. So that's it. That's the quick high level. I wanted to make sure I ended on a light note. I think this might resonate. This is kind of, I think, where we landed this year. I give 2021 star, and I think most feel the same. We're excited to put 2020 behind us in a lot of ways. But also, again, I've done a lot of work and excited about how a lot of that previous work is going to influence where we head into 2021. So thanks for sticking through that high level update. The one thing I'll say, maybe looking forward at Learning Economy and through CLab, we're definitely looking to sort of double down on the LER pilot network. The sort of digital wallet landscape is evolving very quickly, and there's a lot of resources funneling that direction, giving students ownership and agency of their own data, their own records. I think that's going to be a theme throughout next year, and that's certainly something we're going to focus on pretty intently by way of CLab. As I just came off, I noticed I saw Russell on. Before we jump into the panel, I want to make sure, since we have sort of the state agency piece outlined on the agenda, Russell, anything you want to mention about My Colorado or anything else you've got going on? Thank you for hopping in, as always. I know you have a crazy schedule.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you very much. I had rejected the invitation, and then I opened up some time so I could come. But what's really cool is on November 30th, we launched My Colorado with law enforcement support. As I've told a lot of you, we've been working on that primarily to give a safe solution to the police so that they can use Colorado's digital ID. And now they're on board. They're getting digital credentials shared directly from someone's phone to their squad cars and devices and things like that. So we're really excited about that actually going. And now a lot of the things that we've talked about in the past about being able to integrate it in directly with many of the solutions that are on here has been made significantly easier since all that back end stuff is all handled. So I'm excited about it. And if any of you get pulled over, which I hope you don't, you should ask them if you can use your Colorado digital ID, and maybe they'll lower the fees. I don't know.
I've been playing as much as I can at bars, and when it comes to like alcohol purchases, but that'll be a fun one. That next evolution gets a little more real with law enforcement, but
yeah, it's well, the place we made the biggest dent, I think, is in dispensaries, actually, in cannabis dispensaries. So those have worked really well. The liquor, the bars and stuff, it's a little bit, but you're right. The police, and then there's I don't know if I mentioned this before. We're doing our first healthcare pilot with the Mental Health Center of Denver. And so they'll be onboarding, or I guess admitting people leveraging the digital credentials that they get sent. So they're the first non-law enforcement pilot that we have as well. So lots of really cool stuff going. Now that people have actually seen it, a lot of agencies and businesses are interested. So cool stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, congrats to Michael and CDHE on all that is MCJ and the Data Trust. Congrats to Russell and OIT and everything that's happening on the My Colorado and Digital ID front. All of this obviously aligns to and opens up doors that I think we're all starting to see what's really possible. And so certainly part of our plan. And again, hopefully some of that, we're hopeful that whether it's the ACE Challenge or other support, we can really start to pilot some interesting ways of merging all of these into a unified front. So cool. Thanks again, Russell. We'll be in touch. As you know, I bump you and I mentioned all the Youth Denver and Colorado Jam stuff. We need to connect. I'm excited about all that is.
Isn't that virtual thing cool? I mean, it's awesome.
Going to be awesome.
It's like a Peanuts character too, which is always great.
Cool. I think that's it. Wanted to make sure we had plenty of time to jump over into the panel. I'm really excited to wrap up the year discussing this idea of skills and knowledge as currency. And we've got and Duncan, Colin, others from I thought Chris might be able to join. I don't see him on. We might bump him and see if he can pop in. But would love to open it up and have Dan Tesfay from Kauffman, Naomi from the Design Lab. We can actually let's do a quick round of intros, and then Ken as well from Odom. Dan, Naomi, Ken, if we want to go in that order, quick intro, and then I'm going to jump in and give a few prompts and hopefully poke the bear. This is a pretty big and interesting topic, but if you guys want to do quick intros first, and then we'll get into it.
Sounds good. Hi, my name is Dan Tesfay. Apologies in advance. We have some work going on in our house, so you may hear a generator or a saw here in a few minutes. I'm the data strategist on the real world learning team at the Kauffman Foundation. We're based in Kansas City, Missouri, and we make investments in education actually on both sides of state lines. So we work in 2 counties in Kansas and 4 in Missouri. And, we're really interested, especially in conversations around real world learning. We started having those conversations as a region a few years ago, and, really focused on every student in the Kansas City region graduating with 1 or more market value assets, which we define as an internship, a client connected project, an entrepreneurial experience, an industry recognized credential, or dual credit, meeting a threshold of 9 more hours. And obviously in starting to think about or reimagine education, we're starting to think a lot more about credentials, verification, portability. And it's opening up a lot of really, really awesome conversations. We're excited for the future. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Hey, I think you said I'm next, Taylor. So hi, everybody. I'm Naomi Boyer. I'm with Education Design Lab, and I'm leading their digital micro-credential team. We have a suite of 21st century skills, digital credentials that we work with providers to kind of get out there. We have a competency framework that underscores that. I'm coming from, when I joined the lab over 1.5 years ago, I was coming from the world of higher ed. So I've been in higher ed upper administration positions and done everything on that strategy and innovation side of things, including CIO for 5 years, but around even on the instructional side, so the distance learning, online support, working on alternative program development, competency-based education, economic development, a whole bunch of different fun things. And I always get to play in that fun space. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because Education Design Lab, really works to identifying solutions that bridge to the world of work. And we work with both higher ed and employer partners, and the bridge between them for that learner is missing. We use human-centered design thinking, and I like to say learner-centered design thinking. And I think in this space, the piece that we probably need to do more of is to recognize that learner persona. How does all of this impact that learner? And that's some of the dialogue that Taylor and I have been having over time.
Awesome. Thanks, Naomi. And Ken, last but not least.
Yeah, great. Thank you, and good to meet everyone as well. My name is Ken Finch. This is the first time I've attended a C-Lab Pulse event, so it's great to meet everyone and learn what's going on. As you mentioned, I work for Odom. I'm the Director of Business Development, and I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Odom is actually a Swiss headquartered company in Zug, and it's good to know the next time I visit Colorado, if I do unfortunately get pulled over, that maybe I can have a little help on that end. But yeah, my role is primarily, Odom has built a trusted education marketplace where we've tried to bridge the connections between employers, students, and education organizations. We use blockchain technology, the Ethereum network, to help verify and authenticate education records. And my primary role is to establish and develop partnerships with educators and education organizations. So we work with four-year universities, we work with community colleges, corporate training centers, and individual educators offering all different types of education. And yeah, the skills piece is very important because we are dealing with an international community, and especially to verify those skills for both employers and for educators. So great to be over with everyone. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you all for the quick intro. And so I think, the thought here was obviously bring together folks that have a ton of experience and expertise, but also potentially some diverse viewpoints because of the sort of different worlds, professional worlds you each live in. So I think to sort of kick this off, and maybe this is the only prompt that's needed, and I'll actually, let me share it here. So I think it's worth asking both can and should we really look at skills as a form of currency, and we can talk about the use of the word currency itself and sort of how we're thinking about it in this context. But can we? In our mind, that's yes, but there obviously are a lot of implications that surround that. So can we? And if we can, and if we do, how do we work towards thinking about skills as a currency that are then exchangeable in a sort of emergent market economy, in our minds, an economy that's actually based around learning and skills. So floor is open. Would love to sort of let you three tackle this initially, and then certainly want the broader community to jump in as well. But let's have you three sort of jump in and give your thoughts first, and feel free to take the other side of this if in your opinion actually treating skills as currency is a dangerous road to go down.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to take a stab at it and start out. As I mentioned, Odom, we deal with a lot of customers based in educators in different parts of the world. And by trying to build that connection between education courses and programs with employers, we found that where the skills are really important, and I guess could be viewed as kind of a form of currency, is that some jobs are described in the United States is differently than how they're described in China, different than how they're described in Australia, and we're working with partners in all those countries. But the skills, and we use the ESCO data framework to help define the skills that are acquired as a result of education and a result of experience. But the skills become, for us, kind of a universal language. And so employers can describe the skills that are required and preferred for a job that they're trying to fill. Students can be able to not only see jobs, but courses, and see the skills they require. And the skills have become kind of a universal language, and I guess in some ways a currency that is able to bridge the gap between maybe the way jobs and courses are described in different cultures and different parts of the world. So that's something that we've seen develop and become really important with the work that we're doing.
I would throw out and give credit for this take to someone we work with closely, David Berg, who created Emblaze, which is a student app built on Salesforce for students to track their time on internships and other work-based learning experiences. We were talking about this recently, and he said, skills are already currency. If we think about what we have today, is that it's not explicit, and we have skills that are bundled or collected in transcripts or are acknowledged through name recognition of institutions or various pathways and things like that. And the question is, can we make them more explicit? And can we do that in a way that makes access and to opportunity more available? So I think I would say they already are really currency. I like his take on that.
Yeah, potentially more the perception, and I like that. Sorry, go ahead, Naomi.
No, I was just going to say, yes, they are currency, but we're not doing a really good job, as you were saying, Dan, of making them intentional, explicit, and something that can be exchanged. So that's where all of the data and store comes in, and us capturing those skills. We've been throwing around, just in the time we've been on this call, the language is like really important. And there's so many words that we've been using in this space because we may know what they mean, but the general public doesn't. And we're going to really have to think about this, because if skills become a currency, people need to be empowered to be able to spend that currency. And so when we're talking about things like CLRs, LERs, wallets, there was a whole bunch of terms that we've been using as part of this conversation that we haven't bridged into. Skills themselves are also really representative of competencies, which competencies are made up of skills, knowledge, and abilities. Because when we're talking about skills, I don't think we're just talking about hard skills as much as we're talking about the knowledge that someone has and can be demonstrated, as well as those abilities. And so I understand we're talking about a lot of proxies here. The degree is a proxy for what someone should be able to do, but a degree does not always represent what someone has mastered. And so it's really unpacking all of these little things to get it down to what is the value that those skills have. Because someone should be able to leverage those skills to buy themselves a higher quality of life through the work promise that it holds for them. And then all of the data conversations flowing to make that happen are really important. But something to really, I think, consider as part of that skills, and I kind of threw this out to Taylor, my recent thinking is that these skills are not only a currency, but they're also a commodity. I've got something now to generate and sell. So it's not just me outreaching and using it to buy myself a better opportunity on that marketplace, but it's also allowing employers to find me and for me to be able to capitalize the skills that I have. But what you just heard me say is I have to be able to capitalize on them. So as Taylor was talking about agency in this space, if we don't empower people to do that, they're not going to know how to maximize these skills as a currency or a commodity. Because let's think about how long we've had paper-based currency and how many people get themselves in financial trouble. And we have financial literacy issues. We're going to need skills literacy. We're going to need a way for people to be, not only give them an option to be empowered, but we're going to need to help people market what they have and operationalize those as they move forward.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny, I'm writing sort of this big year-end wrap-up that I think is going to be titled something like Memes, Metaphors, and the Future of the Internet of Education, something like that. But I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on the accessible language. And I think that's through analogies and metaphors and means of, like you said, there's very few, certainly students, I think, that view skills in the way you just described as, commodity or as a currency like actual you know, they treat a dollar bill. And then we get into, and this might get fun, looking at education and skills as futures and being able to trade in marketplaces. So I wanted to tee up both potentially Colin. I know part of this work is tied deeply into evolving work within Standards Group. He's been working pretty closely within IEEE. There's a lot of other initiatives to sort of standardize some of this. So if you want to give a high level maybe on thinking around that, or if you want, you can also kind of pass the baton and let Chris jump in first too. Chris, thanks for jumping in. I know this is a conversation that you've put a little bit of thinking into. So feel free, Colin or Chris.
All right, well, I'll jump in there. Thanks, Taylor. The year in review was pretty awesome to see all that has been happening in C-Lab and the greater learning economy group. So what I've been a part of is the IEEE has an interoperable learner record working group that has started the discussion. We've had 6 meetings now. It meets monthly, and I'll put the link in the chat here for anyone who's interested in subscribing to the listserv. But we've been having the discussions globally about what do credentials look like? What do verifications look like? What is the tech that's behind making this happen? And how can we find some common language and some common infrastructure for making these skills transferable across networks? And that's really what the challenge has been in some of the discussion is, you know, what is happening in Europe with the rail system and what's happening in South America with their learner records and what's happening in the Asia Pacific and North America. Like everybody's doing different things. They're all making progress in ways, but having some commonality and allowing that learner or that professional to be at the center, to own the credentials and to be able to pass them and verify them is a tremendous challenge, especially when you take it outside of just one context and try to scale it globally. And so at the last meeting, we had some discussion about, well, what is the scope of the work that we should be doing? Should we be providing end-to-end solutions or parameters around these practices, or should we really be focusing more narrowly? And the consensus, at least to begin, is that we should be focusing on the learner wallet. We should be focusing on the credentials that are being put into the wallet and the who's receiving them on the other end. Now, that is a very loaded frame and scope when you think about all the institutions and all the networks involved. But that was a very passionate discussion. It was great to hear from people across the globe about what can we all unify or rally around in terms of supporting learners and individuals that are passing from place to place. So if you're interested in joining that work, our next meeting will be in January. And there's a pretty awesome group that gets together and discussions pretty rich. So I'll put that in the chat here. But that's really the work here that I love hearing from different people about. Well, is this a currency? Is this not? Well, it's absolutely a currency in some capacity. But how can, and this is me entering my thoughts in here, how can we empower every learner, every employer, or an employee to have opportunities regardless of the institution that is on their transcript, regardless of the place that gave them the credentials, right? We all know that there are schools and there are employers that carry weight with them, but what about the ones that don't? And we know those learners have skills, we know they have value. So I'll stop there and pass it along, but thanks for the discussion, the opportunity to share, Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. And both with IEEE, I'll also quickly highlight, and then we'll move past sort of the standards piece of this, but within W3C, the credentials community group, and within that, there's a verifiable credentials for education task force. That's another place that this is all being sort of worked out, and it's evolving quickly. A lot of great work going on in those two spaces. So reach out, happy to connect folks into those. Naomi also mentioned the Open Skills Network. I think that's another really interesting and sort of nascent networking community that's doing work around skills mapping and ontologies and that sort of thing. We've got about 15 minutes or so. And Chris, I want to give you some time. You can do what you want to blow our minds here. You came in a little late, which maybe is good because you don't have some of the context to the prior discussion. But yeah, when you think about sort of skills as currency and what that means, for the individual? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what Naomi said. I mean, when you think about it like a commodity, when I was a kid, right, my neighborhood of, kids, we had an economy, right? We didn't have money, but we had baseball cards and we had Hot Wheels and we had dolls and action figures and video games. And we would trade with each other based on the heartburn of what it felt like to give it away, And so you have
Pogs are coming back around.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. Pogs, etc. And you may have the latest, greatest video game that no one wants to part with, but if you had 5 Michael Jordan rookie cards, maybe it would be worth it to them. And so the economy was very much, a commodities market that was based on, how we, what was the value at any given time. And fast forward to today, and when you think about value and economy, it's my time for money in a lot of ways. That's how most people see it. But to Naomi's point, it really is actually a commodity market, right? Because we are not really trading our time, we're trading our skills in a way, because that's how we have arrived at a place where we can earn money for our time. And so in many ways, the degree has a ton of value. We know it does, but we're learning more and more that employers are very interested in your skills. And that's becoming more and more, a trend, because we're starting to learn ways to quantify those skills, but we're still in the early days of that. Right. And so I think what's exciting about things like the Internet of Education, right, and some of, the new technologies like blockchain and, a self-sovereign identity and, these types of advanced algorithms, AI and such, is it creates the type of infrastructure and framework where we can start to quantify the value of those skills in a way, right? And in some ways, that's where things really change, because when you think about quantifying the value of a home, for instance, then you can get equity out of it and liquidity out of it, and you can build a market economy on top of it, right? We are doing the work even now to create a way where we can do the same with skills, right? And we're starting to understand the skills that the world needs.
A thumbs up if you're good to go, and a thumbs down if you need more time.
Open it.
Somewhere.
Be sure to mute it. Thank you. I know we've got some, I was gonna say, by no means critical. I know we're all doing many things right now. So sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, yeah, it's great. I mean, and so I think that's just an interesting kind of moment. And, and when you think about that as well, what this new technology does in a sense, right? To have a wallet for education, like, I have a wallet, right? And in my wallet, I can put my ID and I can put my credential, or I can put my credit cards and all these important, items. But when I have, on my device, all of my transcripts and my skills and my achievements and everything that I've done throughout the lifelong moment, or the lifelong experience of learning, this also changes equity in a really drastic way. Because as a learner, I know I'm collecting now, right? It's not all these disparate things that I did once and I forgot about, and then they evaporated, and I tried to write it down on a resume if I could remember it. But I actually am collecting it, and each piece that I collect is a bit like gold in a way, right? It's adding to my asset. And so every piece that I collect and I put into it creates more value for me to be able to optimize and to understand, and for me to be able to prove to employers, to institutions, to whatever, the future may come. And so in a sense, everyone who begins to develop inside of the Internet of Education, creating new ways to add badges, credentials, skills, achievements, records into my learner wallet, is essentially creating that framework for the commodities market. They're adding assets as we go. And I think that's going to transform every single layer of education, the same way the credit card, transformed, the financial industry. So it's very exciting times.
Yeah, and I see Naomi. I know you're nodding. Let's cycle through one more time. Naomi, Ken, and Dan, if you have thoughts, and then folks that want to hop in, please. We have enough here. Probably. Let's go ahead and use the raise hand function, or just let us know in the chat if you have something to share. I know we've got a lot of Gita, Noah. Good to see you jump on. I know you're working on this like now. Brenda's been in this work forever, so great to have this collection. Let's cycle through one more round for the panelists, and then if you have something to share, feel free to kind of queue yourself up, and we'll jump into the broader group.
And if I could jump in first, I'm sorry, I get so excited by all of this conversation, and really just to tack on to what Chris was saying, validated, right? Because when you go back to that resume, anybody can say whatever they want on a resume. Yes, you may get your official transcript after the fact, but all of the things and those skills that you're trying to collect are not necessarily validated. If you went on that commodities market and you bought gold, you're going to be looking for some sort of authentication that what you're purchasing is real. So moving towards this learner wallet gives a validated sense because that issuing institution has their information behind it, which makes it validated information. At the lab, we believe there's a learner revolution underway. And part of that moral imperative is to help learners become visible and their learning become visible, which means their skills become visible. And that's where it's important that the digital discoverability of the learning outcomes, the skills, the knowledge, and what they've accomplished is a moral imperative for those equity issues that Chris was mentioning, that we make sure everybody has the opportunity. Because if not, we're just continuing to perpetuate what we currently have if you minimize the access. So everyone needs to be digitally discoverable, their learning and the learner needs to be visible in this marketplace. And it is both, I think, a currency and a commodity, and that allows someone to then change their future to the better.
Yeah, well, thanks. I was just thinking some of the same thing about the validation of the skills, because when you think about a currency, the dollar or gold or any unit doesn't have any inherent value on its own. It has value because we all agree and give it value. And skills are the same, as Naomi mentioned. Anybody could claim anything, but it's how we validate or verify and build that trust. And so that's one of the key things. It's a big challenge, but there are some great solutions coming out. But yeah, being able to not only be able to collect your skills and share those skills, but give away for employers and for anyone to say, hey, I can rely on that information. And I can trust that the skills that you have, that in fact that you do and that they have value.
Yeah, I would just second almost everything I've heard in this conversation. My connection's unstable again. The one thing that I haven't heard that I would also throw out is, we came to a lot of this work from learning about data trust and thinking more about, the flow of information, open information for learning. And as you think about, treating skills as commodities, the other thing that I think is hugely important in creating that base level understanding of skills and their value is the ability to empower potentially a golden age of research like we haven't seen before, because brokering those research agreements directly with individuals like we see with Apple Research over Apple Health and things like that could be enormously beneficial. And I think even the act of saying, I will submit my records for people to learn more about the pursuit of education and access and opportunity to improve, our collective understanding, even that puts people in more of a scientific mindset and could get them more interested in this participatory research process. So I think the implications are enormous as we think about philanthropy, nonprofits, all of these providers who want to support and oftentimes just don't know when and how, and sometimes don't know if what they're doing is the right thing to do. I think all of those questions can be tackled with CLRs at the center of it.
Yeah, I would agree that there's an entire sort of research vehicle and opportunity that's certainly coming alongside that often I think gets overlooked. One forward-looking part of this, I wanted to wrap up and make sure we sort of talked, what it looks like steps into next year. That's certainly something we'd like to sort of put on our radar and really be a part of is building out a research sort of mechanism within learning economy to be a part of helping shape it. Because I think you're right, there's a lot we can and need to learn along the way as this evolves. Anyone else? Floor is more or less open as we round things out. Matt Mellon, good to see you. There's a lot of high octane brain power in this group. If anyone wants to jump in and go skills as currency or any other direction for a few minutes, we can do it.
Hey, Taylor, can I jump in?
Please, Gita, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share the work that I've been doing. Some of you have heard about it, and it may link well with the conversation we are having here. So I'm at CU Denver, and I've been working on this project called Livedx, which stands for Lived Experiences. And it's an attempt to help school districts in Colorado right now to help students get a profile of what we're calling college and career readiness skills, which is now part of the 2021 graduation requirement. So what we're doing is we've piloted this work with 2 school districts, and we help students kind of document their life experiences happening in college courses, or sorry, high school or wherever, internships, apprenticeship, and then using a research framework that comes out of social emotional learning, employability framework, and so on and so forth. We give them micro credentials that allow them to create a profile of their college and career readiness skills, 21st century skills. And then we've created a machine learning algorithm based on that data because we are collecting our own data. So we're mindful of this AI piece, which is ethical, humanizing. It's not regenerating the existing biases. And then so that we can give these credentials real time and allow students to actually create their profile. And then at CU Denver, I've actually now created 7 courses where students can stack their micro credentials in Livedx and come to college to earn college credit through our continuing education. So it's quote unquote subsidized rates. It's cheaper than earning regular college credit, and they can be used for electives if they were to go to college to use those credits. So I wanted to kind of share this work because it kind of aligns very well with what is the currency, because with micro credentials, the challenge is like how folks recognize that. So right now I'm trying to solve the problem by connecting those to college credit. But eventually, I like to figure out a way to give credentials through Livedx on its own. But I wanted to share and hear what others had to say about that.
Yeah, I think Livedx is a perfect example of the sort of granular work going on everywhere. I think in particular, this is a project we're excited about just because of the human focus. But obviously, thinking about how these all map into, it's looking into next year, we're going to continue to push and sort of advocate for the Internet of Education. In fact, I know a few folks jumped on, I'll share again, ensuring that, all of this work feels like it's part of, a unified effort. And whether that's treating skills like currency or just, data ownership, digital sovereignty, digital dignity, these sorts of ideas, that's really what that vision's about. We're opening a door to anyone to join as a signatory. There's some principles that are part of that broad vision. So again, that's just one way we're trying to help folks signal that they, see how their work maps to sort of unified and collective effort, as opposed to, we know the sort of singular siloed problems that have gotten us to where we are today. So any final thoughts? We're I know up against the last 3 or 4 minutes, but Naomi, Chris, Ken, Dan, anybody or others, feel free. I want to make sure I don't see any hands up. Any final words of wisdom?
I just want to say thank you, Taylor, for having me on and for the opportunity to engage in this dialogue. I think if what I'm looking forward to in 2021, besides the vaccine, we'll stick that out there, is the opportunity. I think we're really at a leverage point and perhaps an inflection point that can really facilitate change in all of these conversations. And if the pandemic was good for anything, it was for really, shining a light on what we need to be doing now in the virtual space. We've got to deal with the digital divide. We've got to figure out because if we have a digital discoverability and these skills are available virtually, we have to make sure people have the access that they need to be able to optimize these tools.
Yeah, and would just sort of echo the thanks. The thought partnership that EDLs provide up to this point has been amazing, and we'll obviously keep it moving into next year. So thanks for being on.
I would just offer too that I appreciate all the expertise and the knowledge that people are sharing and the different projects they're working on, and that encouraging each other to reach out if somebody said something or like is working on something that sounds similar or that you're interested in, and you're like, oh, let's make a connection, reach out. I think that's a big part of this, is that so many people are working on projects in different places, but jumping in with a group and creating a pilot program that contributes to the larger ecosystem creates a huge impact. And aligning work really helps to make it ultimately easier and more seamless for the learner. I think that's who we're all advocating for here, is that we want that person in the middle to feel like they are connected to everything, right? That they don't have to go back and forth, that a lot of that work is aligned behind the scenes for them. So thanks for everyone for contributing.
Yeah.
I would add to and I know this is something on everyone's plate too, but just the privacy, the individual ownership of these credentials for the students is really, really a critical part of this, in my opinion. And, you know, sort of the way that data ownership works currently across a lot of the platforms that kids are using or everybody's using is not the greatest. And, you know, there's a great opportunity with what everybody's working on here to make that a focus of it and just improve people's sovereignty and, you know, protection of their privacy with that optional sharing what you want to, but not more than you need to type of functionality. I think is a great aspect of it, and it's something that deserves emphasis.
Yeah, and since I know he's selfless and won't say so, Matt's a big sort of local crypto and blockchain expert, and he's got I think cryptocurrency for dummies, right? He's an author in the Dummies series. So folks that want to dive deeper into crypto, Matt's got a book in the Dummies series that is very accessible. So thanks, Matt. Cool. We're right up on the hour. We'll probably hang and chat. So feel free to hang if you can. But I want to say thank you again. Yeah, this has been an awesome community to build over this past year, and certainly looking to do more into 2021. One thing I'll mention quickly, Learning Economy, we're really trying to sort of take our next stage in our evolution, really lean into being a sustainable sort of traditional nonprofit. So part of that is fundraising and finding means to support all of this work. So, you know, as you can, or as connections make sense, please continue to reach out and just let us know if you have folks that are, you know, open and willing to support some of this, and how we can also, you know, be a support mechanism for all the work. So any final thoughts? If not, feel free to jump. I see Phil jumped on. Phil will hang on if you want to hang and chat. Otherwise, big thank you to Dan and Naomi and Chris and Ken for hopping in and sharing. We'll be in touch, I'm sure, into the new year. So